We start with a single cell, a stem cell. And when that cell enters our research network all over the world, it becomes the most powerful tool we have in medical research today.
Good evening and welcome to the 2022 Gala and Science Fair of the New York Stem Cell Foundation Research Institute. I'm Dr. Derek Rossi, Interim CEO of NYSCF, and it is my pleasure to serve as your host for this exciting program. As we celebrate science throughout this evening, we're going to learn about the promising research that's being done by NYSCF scientists every day, all in the pursuit of our mission to accelerate better treatments and cures for some of the most devastating diseases that affect patients through stem cell research. I also look forward to recognizing our 2022 stem cell heroes, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, and Dr. Irving Weiss, and remembering the life of our founding CEO and NYSCF co-founder, Susan L. Solomon. Tonight, our theme is Show Up for Patients. It's almost inevitable that at some point, we or the people we love will become patients. Patients are central to scientific research. We could not do what we do without their partnership and dedication to finding better options for themselves and others. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. The NYSCF community and its mission has been an integral part of my life since I first received a NYSCF Robertson Investigator Award in 2010 when I was a professor at Harvard. I've had the great fortune of having an exciting and fulfilling career as a stem cell scientist and biotechnology entrepreneur, co-founding Moderna as well as several other clinical stage biotech companies. Without doubt, I believe in the power of science and stem cell science to change the lives of patients and their families. NYSCF occupies a unique niche in the global research and biomedical ecosystem as an independent research institute that works to advance the entire stem cell field. NYSCF's mission is threefold. We provide education, information, and learning opportunities to both the scientific and lay communities. We provide funding for young scientists all over the world through our innovator programs, building and fostering a huge community of over 200 leading researchers. And lastly, our own NYSCF Research Institute, where NYSCF scientists, engineers, and staff conduct research at our location on Manhattan's West Side. Everything we do is fueled by philanthropic support. It is the driving engine behind what makes NYSCF's model so nimble and so unique. I hope you will join me and everybody with us today to support our research and help us achieve our mission. You can donate at nyscf.org/donate. It's one thing for me to tell you about what we do, but I think you will enjoy seeing a small window into our research institute in action.
One morning I woke up. Something was wrong.
It was 7 days before my 10th birthday.
My first day of 7th grade.
She was only 2 years old.
I learned to live life in a new body.
With infantile neuroaxonal dystrophy.
Type 1 diabetes, macular degeneration.
Anybody who has a patient in their household, which is pretty much all of us at some point in our life, what you do is you sit awake at night thinking, what could I do to help my family member who's suffering?
At NYSCF, all of our work starts with patients and ends with treating patients. Our bodies are made up of billions and billions of cells, and all of these cells come from stem cells.
The cells that we work with here at the New York Stem Cell Foundation are known as pluripotent stem cells, and these cells are incredibly special.
Over the past decade now, we have been able to make them in a lab, simply taking a few drops of blood,
turning on a few key genes.
We can make any type of cell that we want to study.
Liver cells, out come beta cells, pancreatic cells, brain cells in different types of neurons. We can't open up someone's brain and take cells out of it, so instead we can grow them in the dish here now.
This is something that has been completely a revolution for the way we study diseases.
They also allow us to test new drugs for ways of stopping those diseases.
More than 95% of drugs for brain fail a clinical trial. The drug failed because it's been tested in a mouse. In a mouse, we cured Alzheimer's, we cured Parkinson, we cured diabetes, we cured everything in mice, except that when you go to human, guess what? They don't work. And so we need to test on human cells, and this is going to be a game changer.
A lot of the data that one gets out of experiments depends on the experimental setting. The way it had been done for decades before is really if you could get a patient sample here and you get another one there and you get another one there, you process them differently and then you try to draw conclusions. The amount of experimental noise that's introduced from that pretty much masks any real scientific conclusions.
Susan said, well, if we're going to use stem cells and we're going to study diseases, we would need robotics to be able to do this at large scale.
Everybody really laughed at it, but nothing is impossible at NYSCF.
So the NYSCF Global Stem Cell Array, it has automated and revolutionized making stem cell lines. Nothing like this end-to-end exists elsewhere in the world right now.
This is unprecedented and was only possible because of private philanthropy.
This is not something that traditional labs have the capability of doing, looking at populations of people in the context of different diseases. For example, Alzheimer's really isn't just one disease. It's actually probably several different diseases. And to really understand how different groups of people actually experience Alzheimer's, you need to look at a lot of people. Using the NYSCF Global Stem Cell Array, we've been able to develop the number of cell lines that actually reflect the real disease process. They allow us to understand what's going wrong in those neurons. And we can show that those neurons behave very similarly to what we see in those people's brains. We can also use the same stem cells to try to discover new drugs that might halt that process.
The NYSCF Global Stem Cell Array has also been transformative, not just to us here at NYSCF, but to researchers around the world. Or recently, in the area of PTSD, studying the effects of the war zone on veterans with researchers at Mount Sinai. We asked, could we see differences in the cells of individuals that came back with PTSD and those that came back apparently healthy? And sure enough, we've been able to identify signatures of PTSD in the dish. It allows us to ask the question, well, can we now think about therapies?
The vast majority of medical studies for decades and decades focused solely on males, but also true of ethnic diversity.
We see that clinical trials, for instance, if the patient population does not represent everyone that exists in the world, if it's biased towards certain race or certain genetics, and that means that maybe that drug or that result may not be applicable to everyone.
We're trying to correct this and bring stem cell biology to all ethnic groups.
The diversity on our models is very important to make things in research more applicable to everybody.
And then if we think about wanting to do this across many individuals, including things like ethnic diversity, sex diversity, we really need new approaches, and that's where artificial intelligence has come in.
Biology is subtle. You can show a human eye 100 images of cells from 100 different patients, and they'll look almost exactly the same to the human eye. But AI can see these tiny little differences.
So, for example, we've taken cells from people with Parkinson's disease and imaged these cells, used machine learning and AI to be able to better measure healthy cells from sick and diseased cells. This allows us an unbiased way of trying to understand how these diseases work, and an unbiased way of trying to find new drugs.
And that's resulted in the NYSCF Discovery platform that can find new medicines or repurpose old medicines to treat diseases that are right now otherwise untreatable.
I've seen that data from NYSCF. It's truly remarkable. The age of cell-based therapy is upon us, and NYSCF is leading the way.
We're looking to treat age-related macular degeneration, which is the leading form of blindness caused by the deterioration of a layer in the eye called the retinal pigmented epithelium. Current treatments are mainly aimed at slowing the progression of the disease, but there's no real cure. And so what we're trying to develop is a true cure where we can replace the cells that are dying and not simply slow them from dying.
We're creating the stem cells, creating their retinal cells, and putting those cells back into that patient.
So for people suffering with this disease today, it's not something that's generations away, it's something just on the horizon.
We're not looking for something obvious. We're looking for high risk, high reward. Yes, it's gonna be hard to get there, but if you get there, you are making an impact in the entire world. You are literally changing the way we do medicine. And you see, boom, all of a sudden, the gray cell is eating the green cell.
The science is spectacular. The staff is strong and very, very effective. The research facility is impressive.
NYSCF is working with researchers all around the world and with clinicians at major hospitals to bring these advancements to patients. This is so critical. It's urgent, and we are doing it.
In keeping with our theme of showing up for patients, we are proud to honor and recognize our 2022 stem cell heroes for their long-standing partnership with NYSCF, their tremendous contributions to patients through science, medicine, and the media. Dr. Sanjay Gupta is somebody you might recognize. He is a multi-Emmy award-winning chief medical correspondent for CNN, a practicing neurosurgeon and associate professor of neurosurgery at Emory University, and an executive producer of HBO's documentary unit, and if that weren't enough, a New York Times best-selling author. Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, an assistant professor of medicine at Columbia University, and a cancer physician and researcher. Sid serves with me on the NYSCF Board of Directors and on the Medical Advisory Board of the NYSCF Women's Reproductive Cancers Initiative. Dr. Irv Weissman is the former director of the Stanford Institute for Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine and is, without question, a towering figure in stem cell science, being the first to purify blood-forming stem cells from both mice and humans. Irv is also a leading expert in the field of cancer stem cell biology, where his work focuses on the stem cell origins of multiple different human cancers. Irv was also an important mentor for me personally as I trained in his lab at Stanford University as a postdoctoral fellow in the early 2000s. These three incredible people have made it their life's mission to improve the lives of patients everywhere through their work as physicians, researchers, and communicators of science. I speak on behalf of everyone at NYSCF when I say we are truly honored to recognize this esteemed group as our 2022 stem cell heroes.
It's sort of my first love. I've been a person who's had a long-standing love affair with the brain and the central nervous system for most of my adult life. It was because of my grandfather. He had a stroke when I was an early teenager, and I saw what happened to him. I saw what happened to his brain. I spent time with the doctors who cared for him.
The very first patient that we were about to treat had metastasis. Her bones were littered with holes. And it didn't seem even likely that it could work. But when we purified blood-forming stem cells, we depleted the breast cancer cells 245,000-fold. 16 years later, she's alive without disease. Please sit down.
Thank you.
There's no doubt that you were cured.
It's amazing.
One of the first patients that I treated with this T-cell therapy was a 10-year-old boy. I walked into the room and he spoke to me in my mother tongue, my Bengali. It totally took me by surprise. There is nothing more gratifying to a physician scientist than being able to communicate and also treat and hopefully cure a patient.
I get to take care of patients who have brain tumors, spinal cord abnormalities, trauma. We've never met them. And all of a sudden we've gone from being total strangers to the most important person in their life. And it's something that you have to really think about.
Patients are central to what inspires me.
It's like they're your friends. You haven't seen them for a long time, but you're emotional.
One of the most exciting things that we're doing now is donor stem cells in a bone marrow transplant so that we can treat their cancer, AML, acute myelogenous leukemia. It's a very radical trial. No one's really done this kind of genetic manipulation in stem cells before.
There are transformative things happening in medicine, in public health, and science that aren't yet translated for the lay public.
This is just an ongoing situation. And
as a journalist, being that bridge, for 20 years now, I've been privileged to be able to tell those stories. I'm all in. I'm still here. I mean, that was very inspiring to me.
I like to think about my books as my personal stethoscopes to feel the pulse of what's happening next. And I'm absolutely thrilled that they can communicate very complex science to the public at large.
If you're a person who made a discovery, you're the only person who legitimately could ask the question, what can we do with this to help people? I started on a line to ask, can we isolate from human bone marrow the blood-forming stem cells? That led us eventually to show only blood-forming stem cells can divide and give rise to an exact replica of itself. Within 4 years of that discovery, we were treating women who had widespread metastatic breast cancer.
I think I'm just saying to David, it's so fascinating. The idea that you could have a stem cell foundation doing this kind of research wasn't something that I was accustomed to seeing. People were busy here growing this foundation, growing the lab, and propagating science forward.
So we have collaborations with all.
I started a formal collaboration with Laura Andres Martin at NYSCF. Laura and her team quickly built one of the largest banks in the world of ovarian cancer cells grown in organoid form. And the idea is to understand how do these cells keep growing. All of this work that we've been doing in the past decade translates into medicines. They're already emerging.
We make discoveries in my lab because I'm lucky enough to have very bright people who have within them the possibility of creativity. You got to get people who have the ability to think and give them enough freedom. Susan Solomon has done that at NYSCF.
Well, I'm so honored to be recognized. I'm looking forward to sharing a prize with Irv, thinking about the times when I was an undergraduate washing dishes in a lab just above him.
We had 100 microliters of a clear fluid. And this is amongst the crowning recognitions for me, because I know that I was chosen for what really happened, not for my political position, not for doing things in the way that people usually do it.
Like if you're looking at something like Alzheimer's, how do you approach that? I mean, I care deeply about this sort of work. I do feel like in my lifetime, hopefully, certainly my kids' lifetime, there will be some things that we look back and say, that was a huge, huge move forward. I will keep telling the story, and this will be one of the most important stories I think I tell.
Sorry I can't be with you tonight, but I am so honored to share being a hero of the New York Stem Cell Foundation with Sid Mukherjee. This is one of the most important accolades I've ever had, because the New York Stem Cell Foundation has shown what energy and drive and insight can lead to by individuals. And the individual, of course, I'm talking about, and we're missing tonight, is Susan Solomon, an old friend, a colleague, who we will miss dearly.
I'm deeply honored to be one of the honorees for this very special event. Susan and the Stem Cell Foundation have been inspirations for me and have really inspired so much of my work and what I do and what I think about. And I'm so delighted to be with you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this award. I don't think anyone who ever receives an award like this really feels worthy. I'm deeply honored, and I'm humbled, especially given my fellow award recipients, Siddhartha Mukherjee and Irv Weissman. You know, I've always been fascinated by the idea that deep within our bodies possibly lies some of the most important biological tools to best heal us. It's as if some of the answers to what ails us have always been there, if we just look hard enough and deep enough. And it is that hard work that the New York Stem Cell Foundation does so well, conducting research, creating laboratories, convening leaders, and most of all, focusing on patients. I'm thrilled to be one of the people who gets to chronicle that story, and I am honored to do so. It is my honor. The impact of private philanthropy is also something to behold with this foundation. The autonomy and the speed and the results facilitated by the philanthropy, as so many people at the foundation have told me. And I first learned about the foundation from Stephen Ross. He has shared so much of himself with so many people here, myself included. And the introduction to this foundation is at the top of my list. When I first visited with Stephen, the great Susan Solomon was there, greeting us with her big smile, incredible intellect, and relentless enthusiasm. We all miss her, and I can think of no greater legacy than the one she left behind. The world will be better because of her. Better for stem cell research, and most importantly, better for countless patients who may also find an answer deep within themselves. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations once again to Irv, Sanjay, and Sid for their outstanding contributions to stem cell science, scientific research in general, and the medical fields. I will now turn to someone who likely needs no introduction to this audience or indeed anyone in the stem cell and research worlds. I distinctly remember the moment in 2010 when I got the call from Susan Solomon informing me that I would be receiving a NYSCF Robertson Investigator Award. At the time, I was an assistant professor at Harvard University leading a lab focused on stem cell biology and regenerative medicine. The award was amazing and came completely unencumbered, meaning that I could use the substantial resources to pursue the most promising research that I saw fit. Perhaps as significantly, that call from Susan that came that afternoon also marked the beginning of a more than decades-long relationship that I've had with NYSCF. NYSCF wouldn't be what it was today, and indeed wouldn't exist at all without Susan L. Solomon and her vision and belief in stem cell science. As a long-term member of the NYSCF community, I am truly devastated by her loss. I am nonetheless excited to carry on the legacy of innovation, collaboration, and focus on the incredibly promising research that NYSCF has enabled and established over the past 17 years. While Susan persevered valiantly against ovarian cancer for 5.5 years, she never lost her dedication to NYSCF and her hope and belief in our mission and work. When Susan began NYSCF in 2005, patients were at the heart of her vision, and they remain the focus of our mission today. As a voice for patients and passionate advocate for science, we lost her much too soon. My wish would have been that Susan could have led NYSCF for the next 300 years. But sadly, that just wasn't possible, even for someone as superhuman as Susan was. But what an impact she made. Please join me in remembering her remarkable legacy.
When your child is diagnosed with a chronic illness that is life-threatening, as a mom, you will do anything to help your child.
Both of our children came down with juvenile diabetes around the same time. And then she came to me looking for money when she was about to start New York Stem Cells. And I said, what do you know about that? And she said, you know, what I don't know, I'll learn.
Susan, of course, had no scientific background. Susan was a lawyer, but she decided, I have to learn science in order to do this credibly.
And somewhere along the line, she said, we're going to form a foundation that will raise money to do this. And I said, well, that's one hell of a really, really interesting idea. And I just was inspired by Susan and her dream.
I knew she was very smart. I knew she was creative. I knew she had a wide range of talents and capability. But I didn't know how great she was at recruiting people and building an organization.
I remember very distinctly sitting in Susan's front room overlooking Central Park and us brainstorming about all the sorts of things that we could do.
I mean, think about it. It was a little nothing. It was an idea.
Susan had a vision that was just extraordinary and exceeded my expectations. But one thing that is clear, it did not exceed hers.
President Bush is about to make public his single most controversial and maybe important decision since he took office: whether to provide federal funds for research on stem cells from human embryos.
When federal government announced that use of certain embryonic stem cells may not be allowed, I was thinking, along many other investigators in New York State, to move on to California. Very few institutions or even foundations were interested in that. And Susan was a pioneer in focusing the attention of many investors of the potential stem cell for research.
One of the big losses of the Bush era was, and the stem cell policies of the Bush administration, was the loss of young scientists who might otherwise have entered the field of stem cell research.
It really is predominantly a field of young people, and it's absolutely critical to make sure that we have young people who are at the top of their game.
She called me on Monday, said, "I believe in what you're doing, and I need you to be in New York tomorrow." Susan really believed in me personally at an early stage.
Her dedication not only to translation, but also to mentoring these really amazing scientists. I can't think of a single other person in the world really who has that kind of impact.
I was standing in line at the airport. She was waving a handkerchief or something, a piece of cloth or something at me, and I turned around and I said, "Who is this person standing in an airport line?" And she basically cornered me in the airport, as only Susan could do, and said, "I want you to come next week to our new labs." But that was Susan for you. She would find every opportunity to move this cause forward.
She has taught me to dream high. So she just kept taking risks, kept thinking big, and every time I was like, this is crazy. And every time she showed me that impossible things were possible.
In 2008, the lab had just gotten started. It was really just 1 or 2 rooms, just the bare bones of what we needed. It's amazing to look back and see all of the progress that we've made in different diseases.
The researchers say their new approach could lead to tailor-made stem cells.
We now know that human eggs do have the ability to turn a specialized cell, a skin cell, into a stem cell.
We actually identified a drug that will actually improve the disease and slow the disease for those individuals who are suffering from ALS.
Things like this don't happen by themselves. They happen because of incredible people with incredible visions.
I like to call it of the mouse that roared.
What Susan has contributed is the legacy of not only what NYSCF is, but how it should be.
When she had the idea of building this magnificent laboratory on 54th Street, I wasn't sure we could afford to pay for it, but she said, "No problem, we'll get the money," and we all thank Susan for that.
Susan's been a huge inspiration to me and everyone at NYSCF. The motivation that she had, the passion, it just infected all of us.
And we really feel like we're on the edge of another great leap. She also prepared the organization to make that leap together.
We are going to be building the Susan L. Solomon Center for Precision Medicine. We'll be able to recruit additional scientists, expand our work, and translate our scientific work into clinical treatments and cures.
When we began NYSCF in 2005, we began with an idea and a hope that we would be able to use human stem cells as a new paradigm to understand disease and develop cures in a way that was unprecedented. All of the infrastructure that we have been building over the last 15 years to get to where we are today. This is the realization of a dream.
As we close the program, I want to once again extend congratulations to our stem cell heroes, Sanjay, Sid, and Irv. Thank you for inspiring all of us with your dedication to helping patients all over the world. Truly impressive careers you've all had. NYSCF's mission is to accelerate cures for the major diseases of our time through stem cell research. This is within our power to do within our lifetimes. We, and certainly future generations, might be able to look at diseases such as multiple sclerosis, diabetes, cancer, and other chronic and degenerative conditions in the way that we view smallpox, really as a disease of the past. As NYSCF, we show up every day to make this vision a reality. As Susan liked to say, curing disease is a team sport. Please join us by supporting our work and partnering to help us get cures at nyscf.org/donate. If you've already donated tonight in tribute to our stem cell heroes or patient heroes, I cannot thank you enough. I hope you enjoyed our program this evening, especially those who are new to stem cell research or NYSCF. We could only feature a very small fraction of the exciting work happening at the NYSCF Research Institute from our collaborators, innovators, and partners around the world. If you'd like to learn more about our work, I encourage you to reach out to me, visit our website, or plan a visit to our research institute in Manhattan. Thank you once again for showing up for patients with NYSCF. Stay safe and be well.